This is Samia's room, and you can see that we left her room pretty much the way it always has been. This is her graduation picture from college.
At their home in rural Massachusetts, Nadia Milleron and her husband Michael Stumo are still mourning the tragedy that claimed the life of their daughter.
She was just like a 1,000-watt light bulb.
There's definitely a huge emptiness, and no matter how much you try, they aren't there. We got a lot of boxes back. In here, these are all her things that were found on the field that after the crash.
24-year-old Samia was aboard a Boeing 737 MAX airliner that crashed in March 2019, just after takeoff from Ethiopia's capital.
Ethiopian Airlines says that investigators have just recovered both black boxes from the crash site to try to figure out what happened.
It wasn't the first tragedy involving this aircraft. 5 months earlier, another 737 MAX had plunged into the ocean after taking off from Indonesia.
People on tugboats in the area say the plane nosedived into the sea.
Both aircraft were less than 4 months old. They claimed the lives of 346 people on board. After the second crash, the entire 737 MAX fleet was grounded worldwide, while Boeing faced multiple investigations.
These families deserve answers, accountability, and action. And the public deserves no less.
The official safety inquiry exposed a fatal design flaw. While its report cited poor pilot training, it found the key factor was a problem with the flight control software system known as MCAS, which automatically pushed the plane's nose down, leaving pilots unable to regain control.
After the first crash, if it had been known to the public and the appropriate pressure applied, we believe that there wouldn't have been this second crash and Samia would still be alive.
Boeing was forced to pay billions in damages. Design changes were made to the entire 737 MAX fleet, and pilots were given more training on the flight control system before the aircraft were cleared to resume flying in 2020.
Got some breaking news on Boeing right now. Let's get straight over to Phil.
United and Southwest expected to start flying the MAX early next year.
But within 5 months of getting the green light, 100 737 MAX planes had to be grounded again due to an electrical fault which could result in the loss of critical flight functions. Now 730 can reveal that during 2021, 737 MAX flight crews reported more than 60 other mid-air safety problems, including engine shutdowns and pilots losing partial control of the plane. In response to 6 of the incidents, pilots declared emergencies.
These are not normal situations, routine situations. It's a very dangerous mindset.
One United Airlines pilot declared a mayday after the system controlling the pitch and altitude of the plane started malfunctioning. Another report filed anonymously details how the crew struggled after the aircraft suddenly lost altitude as the nose pointed down and the airspeed changed rapidly. In a statement, Boeing said it carefully examined all logged incidents and concluded none of the reports indicate a trend, and were in line with similar rates in other aircraft.
There are a lot of similarities between what we're seeing in some of the reports that are out there now with what happened during these 2 crashes.
Ed Pearson was a senior manager at Boeing for 8 years. He was with the 737 MAX program between 2015 and 2018. He flagged all 60 incidents as serious, with the potential to end in tragedy. He claims he personally witnessed workers cutting corners to meet production deadlines.
I was very concerned about, those types of embedded hazards and defects. Every one of our factory health metrics was just hitting the worst record lows, and it was across the board, and it was trending in the wrong direction.
A former Navy captain with 30 years' experience as a flight officer, Ed Pearson sent multiple emails to Boeing management warning of his safety concerns and urging them to shut down production 4 months before the first crash. He says his warnings went unheeded.
These are brand new planes. You can't explain it other than production quality issues.
Boeing told 730 the company took Mr Pearson's concerns seriously, but none of the reviews after the initial grounding of the 737 MAX fleet had found production conditions at the factory contributed to the accidents. Boeing said it was implementing comprehensive quality and productivity initiatives in its factories.
Every component failure or defect is something that is very worrisome to the safety of flight, and I believe that it should be looked into.
While aviation safety expert Kwasi Ajukum agrees the reports are concerning, he also points out there are maintenance risks for all aircraft, which have spent more than a year grounded in a hangar.
Because of the storage and the conditions under which an aircraft might have been stored, the electronic components and some of the wiring, because of moisture, the covering would have degraded.
People will say that the 737 is the safest family of aircraft, but I would turn that around and say, well, the MAX is the least safe of any aircraft, any modern aircraft, because of the 2 crashes. They do a lot of their flight test operations out of that hangar.
After starting his career at Boeing, aerospace engineer Joe Jacobson spent 26 years certifying aircraft at the US regulator, the Federal Aviation Administration. He was also involved in several crash investigations. Critics would argue that these are routine problems experienced on all aircraft. Why should we be concerned?
Because there's less margin of error on the MAX. You're starting at a lower level, what I would call a D-grade design, because the design is less resilient and less margin of safety to begin with. So you end up, I think, with a higher level of concern because of that.
In a statement to the ABC, the FAA said planes put back into service would experience routine in-flight issues.
If we accept these as routine and normal problems, right, we've lowered the bar, and what are we going to expect when they're 5 years old or 10 years old or older, right? And I think it's a very dangerous message. I get very upset when I hear somebody just dismiss this. When I first reached out to the NTSB,
Former Boeing manager Ed Pearson has spent years urging the independent crash investigator, the National Transport Safety Board, to investigate his concerns. Last month, it confirmed it didn't examine production practices at Boeing's 737 factory in its role assisting international investigators.
Accident investigations themselves showed that there was production quality defects, but those apparently didn't get the attention of the National Transportation Safety Board, and the NTSB completely violated the most fundamental principle of investigation, and that is to follow the evidence.
The NTSB told the ABC it thoroughly reviewed the information from whistleblowers and determined the Department of Transportation's Inspector General was the best office to review. Virgin Australia has just ordered 29 of the 737 MAX jets, and while most are the latest model, they'll be made in the same factory in Renton, Seattle. The airline declined the ABC's repeated requests for comment. Boeing has already been at the centre of several investigations, but almost 4 years since the first fatal crash, the company is still facing scrutiny and an uphill battle to repair its brand. The ABC has confirmed that the Inspector General of the US Department of Transport is poised to launch another investigation, this time into production at Boeing's factories, which make the 737 MAX and the larger 787 Dreamliner planes.
Samia looks beautiful.
Yeah.
It's little comfort for Samia's family.
This is another moment to wave our hands wildly and say, hey, you shouldn't be allowed to ramp up production or even produce the plane at all if you don't know why the plane's crashed. I talk about Samia and how wonderful she was, and I'm doing that to try to get people to correct the plane and to either ground it or make it safe.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.